please welcome somebody that, if there's a doctor in the house, we're sorted because she has saved lives on an almost daily basis in Dr. Quinn. Please welcome award-winning actress Jane Seymour.
Thank you.
Jane, thanks for coming in this afternoon.
Oh, you're welcome.
Can we start perhaps with your latest movie?
Yes.
Bereave, the story of a 40-year marriage which comes to an unexpected climax. How did you get involved with this in the first place?
Well, I was working on a comedy called Franklin and Bash with Malcolm McDowell, and between some sort of inane banter that we were doing on that, he said, I've got the script, Jane. He said, you're too good. You should be doing, no one's really seen what you're capable of. And I have something. He said, this would be a game changer. And I said, what is it? And he said, just read it. So I read it, and I came back and I said, oh my gosh, Malcolm, this is great. It's a great role. No one's offering me anything like this right now. And so I met the filmmakers, the Giovanni brothers, and then we kind of put it together. And Malcolm had a small amount of time. I had a small amount of time. They did a crowdfunding thing. We got all our friends and everybody in, and it was really very much a labor of love. We made it, I think, in 18 or 30, crazy, 18 days maybe? I don't know, 3 weeks, less than 3 weeks. And we got an incredible cast. And we got Keith Carradine, who's a personal friend, Mike Starr, Vanessa Shaw, and I'm very proud of the movie. I think it's a lovely movie, but it's an independent movie, so it's really hard to get the word out, to get people to see it. But it is playing later, and all the audiences that have seen it in film festivals, literally all over the world so far. This is our European premiere. People really love it.
And your performance in particular has been singled out for praise. It's a great showcase. And she's a really interesting woman. Tell us a bit more about your character.
Well, Evelyn has been married, one imagines, pretty happily for 40 years. And this all takes place on her 40th wedding anniversary. And her husband, Garvey, has started to behave really bizarrely and weirdly. And she doesn't understand why. And we, the audience, realise right from the beginning that something is happening, and he has decided that he'd rather take his own life than tell anyone what's really going on. And it's really a story about, ultimately, what is the right way to die, I suppose. There is no right way to die, is the ultimate thought. But he loves her so much, he doesn't want her to have to suffer while he is losing his life. But at the same time, he's doing the most cruel thing ever, which is he's pushing this woman that he's loved for so long away, and on her 40th wedding anniversary she doesn't know what's going on, and she completely loses it, and ultimately is in danger of her own life and unaware of that, and he realizes that he can't die until he rescues his wife. So kind of given some of it away. It's very different. It's a different kind of movie, and it's very moving, but there are also some funny bits in there.
Yes, I mean, you've got some very intense sequences.
Yes.
And I think, again, without giving too much away, there's a sequence with you out in the streets, or
in my wedding dress.
In your wedding dress.
Completely out of it on drugs and alcohol.
I was going to say it's a Miss Havisham moment, but I don't think
it is sort of Miss
Havisham.
Havisham. The interesting thing is that actually is my wedding dress from when I was 20. Oh. Isn't that wild? And this was supposed to be a wedding dress from 40 years ago. That actually is my wedding dress. You can look it up on probably on the internet and see pictures of me with Michael Attenborough wearing exactly that dress.
And how jealous are we that you can still fit into that wedding dress?
Well, there's Malcolm does like cups of tea and cookies, and I don't usually do cups of tea and cookies, but the back was expanding a little bit, and I can see that I was sewn in, but...
So you must be delighted with the response that this film has had so far, and delighted for the brothers as well. I mean, do you work with new first-time filmmakers a lot? Oh,
yes, I have. I mean, I've done a number of independent movies. I can't even remember all the names of them. One of them, someone told me the other day, was called Scout. I do remember that being pretty good. Usually, I get offered these things a lot, and if it's really good material, and they've got a pretty good cast involved, then I like to do them. I just did one that's great, much more, much easier to sell in a way. It's a dance movie called High Strung. It's worth looking out for. Or a lot of young people. I only play a small role in it, but I'm exec producer on it. And I've been producing for many years, quietly behind the scenes. So I really respect how hard it is to get a movie made. I respect how hard it is to raise money for it and how hard it is to sell it. And I think a lot of people, a lot of actors don't realize that whole process. So they come in, they act, and they go away, and they go, I don't really need to sell, this movie I'm in. Mm-hmm. Whereas I know how hard it is to put the whole thing together. So I really believe in doing all of it, in being able to promote it and letting people know it exists.
You do your own productions, as you say. You've got a really interesting one coming up, a feature on Glen Campbell, the country and western singer.
Yes, I can't wait for that to be shown here in Europe. It's been in lots of festivals. It's done brilliantly in the States. In fact, it's launching tomorrow night on Sunday night on CNN, which is the best place you can ever put a documentary in America. It's huge. And we've already been told now they're going to put it on HLN as well twice afterwards the next week. So it's won lots of adulation. It's really, Glen Campbell was an extraordinary country singer. I mean, he's still alive. And he had done his last album called Ghost on a Canvas. And his producer came to us one day, and he was actually producing our son, who's a musician. And he said, somebody's got to chronicle what's going on. He's going to go on tour, and he has Alzheimer's, and yet he can still play and sing as well as ever. And we don't know how long that will last. And so we kind of got a little crazy, and we went, okay, we'll do it. And so we did it, thinking he'd maybe do 5 weeks. He did 150 sold-out concerts all over the place. Unbelievable story. I mean, it sounds like a very depressing subject because it's Alzheimer's, but there are more laughs in it than most comedies because Glenn is just so funny. I mean, when he found out he had Alzheimer's, he said, look, whatever this thing is, I want to do something to help other people, who are going to have this. And that's why he did it. He wanted to share his experiences, knowing that there would be times when it might be, difficult, really, to show the tough side of what happens to you when you get Alzheimer's. And of course, it's very important because certainly in America, 1 in 2 people of my age, and I'm 64, by the time we're 80, will have dementia or Alzheimer's, for which currently there is no cure. And in America right now, by 2050, which is around the corner, the cost to the American government to take care of people with Alzheimer's and dementia will exceed the national defense budget. So it's a war at home, basically. And, funds are very rarely put towards Alzheimer's. They're put towards, cancer, obviously, and AIDS and things like that, heart disease. So we're hoping that with this movie we'll bring awareness and also, share the extraordinary talent that Glen Campbell had and this amazing thing that he would not know where he was or who he was with his own family and then go on stage and just kill it, sing all these amazing songs.
Extraordinary that the performance gene is still there.
It was still there. Music brought it back. Music is the last thing to go. Yeah, interesting.
I mean, let's go back to near the start of your acting career, Jane. It seems to me that acting was almost an accident for you.
Yes, it was. I was going to be a ballerina. I started out when I went to kindergarten and, they'd say, okay, you stand here, you stand here. I was picked out, I thought, because I was special, but it wasn't. I had flat feet and a speech impediment. So I became a dancer because that would help the flat feet, and I had to do, speech therapy because I would go awound, a-wugged, woxed, a-wugged, waskles, wan. I couldn't pronounce my R's, which of course is really funny when you think about it because I then end up being known in America as an American actress, and what do? They roll their R's all the time. The English don't use R at all, but the Americans, they just, so... that's how and then I trained to do ballet. I loved ballet so much. Of course, I wasn't built right for ballet. That was told when I started. But I did actually manage to dance with a London festival in Nutcracker and the Kirov Ballet at Covent Garden, which was pretty nice, and then injured myself and became an actress by default.
Was that a difficult decision to move into acting from dance?
Well, I went to a wonderful theatrical school where you had to learn everything anyway. Right. So I was already doing a lot of drama and actually being singled out for the drama. And I would also, to make ends meet, because I was on a partial scholarship, I would sing in commercials, usually American ones, for things like Chef Boyardee, so background singing. So I was very versed in all the arts, and so, but it was devastating because I did want to be, a ballerina, and But I have been dancing ever since. I mean, one of the last movies I just did, I was dancing in as well. So I still dance.
Yes, you still dance. You were in Dancing with the Stars, the
Yes.
American version of Strictly Come Dancing.
That was crazy. I'd had back surgery. I could barely get out of bed to go to the physiotherapy. What was I thinking doing Dancing with the Stars? And I'd apparently, it had been offered to me many times and I hadn't realized, and it had been turned down on my behalf without me knowing. Mm-hmm. But on this occasion I found out about it, and to top it off, my mother had had a stroke and was not going to make it. And so I knew that if I did the show, I would never see her again. But she found out about it, and the only word she uttered in 7 months, having had a stroke, was yes, when she heard about. She was a huge fan of Strictly.
Who isn't?
There we go. So my sister said, you've got to do it, so I did, and I kind of did it in honour of her.
That's an amazing achievement, because they give you about a week to learn an entire dance routine, don't they?
3 days.
3 days?
Yes.
Worse than that, then?
3 to 4 days, and in my case, sadly, my mother passed away when I was supposed to be doing a tango, which I'd never even seen, let alone dance. And I had to fly back to England, organise a funeral, attend it, do all of that, learn a tango in 3 days, go back and perform it. And I don't actually remember even doing it. I just remember my mother carrying me. I just remember I did it in her honour, and I don't remember a single thing about that night.
Well, watch out for it on YouTube. It's well worth catching
YouTube.
one of her routines. You're not actually born Jane Seymour, were you?
Joyce Penelope Wilhelmina Frankenberg.
Why change it?
Otherwise known as Frankenstein, Frankfurter, and Frankenberger, or shortened Wilhelmina to Wilma, open this door. No, not good. My mother said Penelope was a nice name in Holland because it's pronounced Penelope. That didn't help either. But I had an agent who said to me my name was too long, too foreign, too difficult to spell. So I kept the initial J and thought Jane, anyone could be Jane, plain Jane. And then actually one of his, someone who worked at the agency said, Seymour, it's English, easy to spell, easy to remember. And of course we didn't realize at that time it was Henry VIII's third wife.
Right.
We cottoned on pretty quickly, but it wasn't like I took on Catherine of Aragon or Anne Boleyn, it's just, she was the wife that no one ever talked about till they started making.
Beheaded, died?
Yes, no,
sorry.
Yes. No, she died. She died actually of, in childbirth, of something that I actually ended up having when I had the twins. Because I was always fearful that having taken her name, that I might have her fate, And actually I came close.
Yeah, you almost died, given birth.
Yes, I did. I had preeclampsia, which is what she had. But in those days, they didn't know what to do with preeclampsia. But nowadays, mercifully, they do.
Well, I mean, going back to the start of your career, I mean, I've looked several times now. I can't quite see you in Oh, What a Lovely War, the Richard Attenborough.
Oh, you can.
But
okay.
you can.
You can, and you can hear me too. No, I'm the third chorus girl from the left in the scene with Maggie Smith.
Right.
And we're singing and dancing. And at one point, the camera pans over 3 people, and it sort of lingers on me for a millisecond. And from that exact moment, that's when I got the top agent in England, who said, "Who is that third from the left?" And apparently the story goes that he and Dickie Attenborough were watching the first dailies, and Dickie said, yes, I think she's really good too. And Maggie Smith took me aside one day and said, "Darling, you're an okay dancer." She said, "but you stick out too much." I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Something happens when you're dancing. You're not kind of making it here in the chorus." And
Dame Maggie being caustic.
Dame
I
Maggie.
can never heard the like.
No, and I thanked her enormously. She said, "Darling, I think perhaps you should try being an actress." I had one line in which she goes, "Is there a man digging your garden when he should be digging trenches?" And I run up and I go, "He should be digging trenches." Literally like that. Which was when Dickie Attenborough came up to me and said, "Darling, I think you need to get voice lessons." And subsequently, I do speak at a much lower register than I'm supposed to.
Ah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you went, I suppose, at an extremely young age to becoming a Bond girl. 20 years old.
20, yes. Well, they were looking for a virgin. Well, they were looking for a virgin. They searched high and low, and it was, what would it be? It was the early 70s, right? Late 60s, and they were thin on the ground. And somehow or other, I was close to the requirement, so they picked me. I don't know why. I mean, honestly, they picked me, and then they did all this stuff about how they'd searched everywhere and found the perfect person to play Solitaire. Well, Solitaire, as I recall, was actually supposed to be black. Or
I heard
Jamaican
Diana
or
Ross
something
at one
like
point
that.
was under consideration.
Yes, I know.
That's
So
quite a
I
shift
didn't
to
know.
you.
I hadn't read the book, so I didn't know, and that was one thing I could not do. I could not play it. So anyway, I was picked to do this, and I had hair that I sat down on, and I was cast on the spot, literally, based on a show I did called The Aeneid Line, which they'd seen on the BBC.
We all remember the Aeneid Line. Well,
Emma Callan, playing a virgin again, typecast, and then age 40, playing a virgin again on Dr. Quinn. I'm really surprised they're not having me play virgins now, you know. It could happen, though, you never know.
but the remarkable thing about getting you into Live and Let Die, and it was an important film because it was Roger
Yes.
Moore's first Bond.
Yes.
But the remarkable thing is, having thought, this is the Solitaire for us, they then tried to change the way you live.
Oh, everything. So they realized I had two different coloured eyes. I have a green eye on the left and a brown eye on the right. And the brown eye isn't just plain brown, it's got green and blue in it as well. So they decided that that wasn't good. So I either had to wear brown contact lenses or green contact lenses. My hair was down to here, and it was a sort of, with this kind of mousy brown colour. And they decided it had to be black, so they were going to dye it and cut it. And I said, well, while you're doing all this, should I have a wooden leg as well or something? I mean, what else are we going to do? And needless to say, they put a hairpiece on me and made my hair darker. They did do that, but I never had to wear contact lenses. I have worn contact lenses once in a movie where I played two characters, an Irish woman from the 30s who was reincarnated to a current woman, and I did the green, all green and all brown. And I don't look like me. It really throws who I am. I look like a different person. It's really weird, isn't it?
It is very odd. And odder still, although Roger Moore didn't seem to do many of his own stunts in the first Bond.
No, none.
Well, there you go, none.
And especially not running.
Is he not a good runner? Right, okay. I think we... But did you do it?
I did, and I don't know why. I mean, they said, okay, I was 20, you were very obedient, you do whatever they tell you. They said, okay, sit in the bus. I said, what's going to happen? Oh, don't worry about it. The bus is going to go there and it's going to be decapitated. I said, decapitated? I'm in the bus? I said, where's Roger? Oh, no, he's resting in his trailer. And then the world's press was there to watch this amazing stunt. I said, well, why am I doing it? And they said, well, no, don't worry about it. Just say it's fine. I said, how do you know it's fine? I said, we did it on paper. It works. So I'm in this. And if you watch the movie, I'm like that size. I mean, they could have put anybody in. I mean, they could have put a model in. I mean, they could put anything. There was no reason for me to be there at all. But it was very exciting afterwards, I must say.
I'll bet it was.
I did that.
It was a very exciting film with the snakes and everything.
That snake thing got a little hairy for me.
Yeah, who likes snakes? You, me, and Indiana Jones. Not keen on snakes.
Not keen on them, but when you raise children, you don't want them to have fear. You try to get over that. So there are photographs of me when my twins were having their second birthday, and they requested reptiles. I have a very large boa constrictor around my neck, and part of it's going like this, like. But when your 2-year-old's wearing a boa constrictor, you feel that somehow you can't be the one that's squeamish, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I won't do it again. I've done it now.
I mean, is there such a thing as a curse of the Bond girls, or did it improve things for you? Did it launch you as an actor?
Well, I think it launches you as a name, and I mean, I'm still referred to as a Bond girl, even though it was.
Still looks like a Bond girl, though, doesn't she?
44 years ago. 44 years ago. It's a long time. No, I was 20 when I did it, and it may have come out then, but I did it when I was 20. Anyway, there was a point where I was turned down for some really major movies that I really wanted to do at the last minute because the director then found out that I'd been a Bond girl. And that was very distressing at the time. So then shortly after that, I was told that the smart thing for me to do was move to America where they wouldn't care.
Yeah.
Being a Bond girl was a good thing. So
you did. So you
I
moved
did.
to America.
I moved to America, and nobody was at the least bit bothered about me being a Bond girl. And you know what? I was actually 2 weeks ago. I was on a cruise ship, randomly sitting right next to and having drinks with Dame Diana Rigg, and we were sharing Bond's girl stories because, of course, she's an extraordinary actress and world class and one of the great actresses of her generation. And people say, oh, Bond girls never work again. Well, we did.
You managed it. Is it true you got stopped on the way into America at one point because they weren't very sure about.
Yeah.
You'd gone in for a publicity tour, and you didn't bring your work papers.
No, it actually wasn't that. I went to do the Bond film. I started work, I think, in New Orleans. And then I came back to England. Then I had to go out again to Jamaica. But on the way to Jamaica, I had to stop in somewhere in America, in transit. And they stopped me and took me away, and they said, you can't go on the next flight. And I said, why? They said, you don't have a visa, a transit visa. And I said, well, I have a visa that allows me to work in America. They said, oh, yes, you could get out now and get a job, but you're not allowed to just, cross the airport.
Oh, man.
And I said, that's stupid. That you do not tell. Do not tell Southern gentlemen who are in power that that's stupid. That doesn't go down very well, no. So anyway, I was almost in tears, and they locked me up, and then I said, do you like James Bond? And they said, yeah, we love James Bond. I said, well, there won't be a James Bond film unless you let me get that flight to Jamaica. So he said, just this once. And so there we go. That's how I got to make the Bond film. Almost arrested.
We did promise that we'd let you have some chances to ask some questions. Are there any questions at the moment? Right at the front.
Hello, Jane. Thank you for being here. And my name's Tricia. I met you at the premiere. I want to ask you about Somewhere in Time, which is one of my favourite films. I love it. I love the story, and I love the acting, and the music in the film as well. But particularly, I love the late Christopher Reeve, and I wondered how it was acting with him, what it was like.
She asked about Somewhere in Time, which is a movie I made with Christopher Reeve, and I have to say it was one of the great experiences of my life, because the friendship that Chris and I had is really very much there on film. So whenever I watch it, I remember everything, obviously what's on camera, but what was happening that day too. And we were very close friends until he sadly died. And I've been working to try and help his foundation since, and I know his kids very well. But it was a magical movie. I just watched it the other day. It was showing on the ship, and it really holds up beautifully. And the music actually was all my fault, because I happened to be friends with John Barry. This movie was made for almost no money at the time, and they couldn't afford decent music like John Barry. And I showed it to John and said, please, you do the most amazing score. And he did it for free, just for back end only, and ended up making quite a lot of money from it. And now it's, it doesn't matter where you go in the world, if someone's playing the piano somewhere, they're playing that theme.
I am an actress, not a doormat.
Yes.
Is that not one of your...
Yes. And I've sort of repeated yes, I'm an actress, not a doormat. Do not wipe your feet on me or something.
Very good, yes.
Yeah, something like that. I can't remember all my quotes.
I was wondering, though, you're very petite, 5'4", 5'5".
5'4".
Now, Christopher Reeve had just come off Superman.
Yes.
So he was huge.
He was huge. His joke with me was he called me, I called him Bigfoot, and he called me Littlefoot, or Minifoot or something, because I was tiny. I had little tiny feet in his... But Roger Moore was a big guy. Tom Selleck was a big guy. Everybody I ever worked was tall. So mercifully, that ballet training came in handy, because I could sort of nonchalantly walk right up to and onto a large block, so that the camera could be at the same place at the same time, because kissing at this angle, it was not going to be good. So
there does seem to be a genuine connection between you and Chris Reeve. You named one of your sons.
Right, one of my sons, Chris Creech, is his godson. And yes, Chris and I, we adored each other. And, he was a very, very special man in my life. And when Dana, who was an angel, literally, couldn't be there with Chris when he was in the chair and he'd do personal appearances and things, she'd sometimes call me up and say, can you come and be with Chris, because he loves your company and you make him laugh, and you can hang out and help me out. And I did. So Chris and I would have long, wonderful philosophical conversations about all kinds of things. He was very much an inspiration for my whole kind of philosophy of the open heart, which is, something my mom talked to me about. She said, in times of challenge, your natural instinct will be to close off your heart and keep something to yourself. And if you do, it'll just eat you alive. But if you can accept what's happened, however dire, which of course Christopher Reeve had to. Open your heart, accept it, and reach out in some way to help someone else. There will always be someone worse off than you. And I think that's what happened with Chris after the accident. You know, I asked him, I said, how can I help you? I'll do anything. What can I do for you? And he said, Jane, he said, there's countless people who've had injuries like mine, and they've been abandoned by their families, by their insurance companies. You know, they're just sitting there facing a wall, and they have no life. And we've got to do something to find a cure for spinal injuries and to help these people. So, you know, he was very much inspiration for me in many ways.
Yes, a great man with a great legacy.
Yes.
Are there any more questions from the audience?
This
before
one
we
here.
move on. Ah, there you are, this man with the...
Okay, yeah. Jane, it's terrific to see you. And I know that in the 1980s you made a couple of movies where you played, I think it was Wallace Simpson in one part, where I think you got a Golden Globe, and the other movie was Maria Callas. And I just wondered, two very, very strong characters, strong women. What was it like to play those parts? And did you pull anything from one to do the other? Because there are similarities somewhere.
Well, it's funny you should ask this question. So I don't know if the rest of you heard. I played Wallace Simpson and Maria Callas, literally back to back. And originally I was going to play Callas. That was what I was going to do. And they had to push it back. And then suddenly I was asked to play Wallace. And I was literally given 24 hours notice to play Wallace. So the only time I had to research Wallace was in the airplane on my way to England. I loved playing both roles. I actually won the Emmy for Maria Callas and was nominated for the other one. I could never keep up with it, but they were great roles. I didn't see a similarity between the two. For Wallace, I had to be very, very tiny, very thin, because she was, you know, anorexic, basically. I had an extraordinary experience of, since then, of knowing members of the royal family who have come to me and said that the Queen Mother couldn't watch it. She was devastated by the whole thing, and that apparently the Queen had seen it and wanted to know how I knew so many facts about Wallace that she thought nobody knew. And I was photographed by Lord Lichfield, who is a cousin of the Queen, who had photographed Wallace in Paris. And he actually took iconic photographs of me as Wallace, so that was pretty extraordinary. And then Maria Callas was interesting because I found a man called Alan Seavright, who was the expert on anything to do with Callas, and had all the hidden camera, you know, amazing footage that no one was ever supposed to know about. So I knew everything. I knew her hairstyles. I knew her accent would change depending on who was speaking to her or where she was. Anyway, I had a lot of research for playing her, and had to learn 3 arias in 3 languages and perform all 3 of them, obviously to someone else's track, in one day. I think it was an 18 to 20 hour day. It was highly illegal. But I did Medea and goodness knows what else. It was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done, playing Maria Callas. And I wanted to really look like I was singing. So I sang full out, although my voice was never heard. And in so doing, I damaged my vocal cords doing it. And also almost lost my life. I got a very bad bronchitis and was given an injection of cephalosporin in the wrong place in a vein or an artery, and I had anaphylactic shock and actually died, and I died and was resuscitated. So I never forget Maria Callas. And the doctor, if you could believe it, when they had resuscitated me, the Spanish doctor, not wanting to be sued, said, "Oh, she's just being hysterical." No, you know, huge hematoma and evidence everywhere, you know, proven ultimately by the other doctors. He said, "Oh, she's hysterical because she's afraid of the role and doesn't want to continue." So I particularly felt good when I got that Emmy. You know, it was like an Emmy that really, you know, is a life-saving thing. But
And just going back to Wallace, I mean, when you were photographed by Patrick Litchfield,
yes.
did he share any particular view on Wallace?
Well, yes, you know, I mean, actually, they all kind of liked Wallace, you know, because I kept thinking that Wallace was supposed to be the persona non grata, but no, he used to spend time with her in Paris and really liked her. There's, you know, I've always wanted to do the rest of the story, which is what their plans, you know, and they were in cahoots with Hitler. I mean, there was some very dark side to that story. We were doing the glossed over American version of, you know, the
Yes.
woman he loved.
The great love story rather than the great invasion of...
Yes, and you know, there's always an interesting thing when you play a real person, you then I have always ended up meeting people that actually knew them or related to them. I mean, I played Maria Callas. Randomly, I went on holiday to Greece in a girlfriend's house in Spetsi. And one day she came to me and she said, Jane, I have good news and bad news. I said, what is it? She said, Niarchos lives not far from here on an island, but he's paranoid. He never leaves his island. So the good news is he'll never come. The bad news is he's invited himself for dinner here, and you will have to cook it with me. I said, I barely cook. She said, we have to cook, traditional Greek food, but the good news is he won't come, but the bad news is we have to cook it anyway. Anyway, long story short, Niarchos did come, was obsessed with me, and did not leave all evening. He was just... And, of course, in our movie, Niarchos was the bad guy, really bad guy. Like, please, hopefully he realizes I'm not Maria Callas.
I mean, you worked steadily in America, which is remarkable because in Britain you were judged too pretty and too exotic, I think, to be cast in anything other than period costume dramas. But America really took you on board. Yeah,
they're not afraid of that. they don't mind exotic or anything. I mean, I did a thing called The Awakening Land, and they just kept covering me in mud. They thought that would help. What did I do? I did. America gave me the most extraordinary selection of roles. I mean, I played an Israeli tank commander first off. That's the first thing I did. Really?
How is your tank driving?
Anyway, I worked consistently in America. They were fantastic. They gave me amazing roles. I mean, I was sort of dubbed Queen of the miniseries at one point, because if they were doing a miniseries, it was either Richard Chamberlain or me, but never the two of us together. And there's a reason for that. Do you want to hear that?
Yes.
Okay, so I always wanted to do the Thornbirds. Who didn't love the Thornbirds, right? Okay, so I was supposed to play Meggie, and I was so excited, but I just had a baby. And so they said, you have to do a screen test with Richard just for chemistry, just to see how you get along. And, Meggie would be a young girl, so make sure you stop breastfeeding. So won't get into that too much, but I did everything I had to do. I do the screen test. I'm getting along famously with Richard. He invites me for lunch. We're talking about, how excited it's going to be in Australia. It's a done deal. I'm going to be Meggie. And we do the love scene, and I'm wearing a sort of negligee thing, and my milk comes in all over his bare chest. Not what he was expecting at any time in his life, to put it mildly. So the next day, and when you really want to cry, but you laugh at the same time, it's just not good. It's like, not good. It was so not good. Anyway, I saw the head of ABC, and he said to me in a parking lot the next day, how did it go? How did it go? I said, it went great until I, dumped a pint of milk on it. And that was it. He put in his contract, he could veto any leading lady. So, yeah.
I often wonder, has there ever been a point in a job where you said, no, I won't do that?
Yes, because I made a choice to have children and have a marriage, and so there were things I couldn't do. So, for example, there was one major movie, I've forgotten what it was called now, but it was a great role. It would have been a major thing, but it required taking a newborn baby to Mexico, and I decided that the health risks were not
worth it.
Not worth it. So there are certain things that I have turned down. I also resolutely didn't want to do nudity, although I've been seen from behind, but never from the front. Never. I wouldn't do full nudity. I wasn't comfortable with it. Not that I was prudish or anything, but I just felt that people, they take that kind of stuff out of the context of the movie, and I just didn't. I didn't want to do that.
Do you think that there's a pressure on actresses
to do that?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I was supposed to do with Omar Sharif to do The Horseman. At one point, they wanted me to play that role. It was a fantastic role, but I would have had to take all my clothes off and have Omar Sharif, touch me on.
And they weren't asking Omar Sharif to do that, were they? They weren't asking Omar to do nude scenes in.
No. In those days, no.
No,
but I'm not.
It always seems a very unequal thing, apart from anything else.
I think in Europe nobody really cares. I think it's normal, isn't it, on television? They're a bit more prudish in America, but
a bit more prudish and perhaps a bit more sexist as well. It does seem to be the actresses who are expected to disrobe.
Yes, probably.
Would anybody from the audience, particularly near the back, yes, there, thank you, valiantly flagging from the back there.
Hello, Jane.
Hello.
Wonderful performance in Reeve.
Thank you.
I have two very different questions.
Okay.
First, you worked with the late, great Ray Harryhausen.
Yes.
What was it like acting to nothing?
Okay.
And did you get the eye on a stick treatment, which he would use for the actors to get an eye line for his creatures?
Yes.
Second question, after the first reading of Bereaved,
Mm.
Could you tell us something about that too?
Okay,
Another
well,
near-death experience.
I know, I've had 3 actually, but the one that I was talking about was, I mentioned just now when I played Maria Callas, I had anaphylactic shock basically, and basically everything shuts down. And I remember realizing that something had gone horribly wrong and trying to tell the male nurse that had given me this injection that something was wrong. And I didn't speak Spanish, but I spoke a little bit of Latin. So I said, yo muerdo, and he said, es normal, and I said, es ni normal, and that was it. And the next thing I knew, I was looking at a white light, and then I kind of went, what's that? And then I looked down, and I could see me, half naked, with 2 huge syringes and a guy freaking out. So that's what happened. And mercifully, the 2 syringes contained cortisone and adrenaline, which is what ultimately brought me back. But it was an absolutely life-changing experience for me, and I definitely changed as a human being. My life changed completely after that, because I now know as close as anyone can what it's like to die. Mm-hmm. And I now value life more than you can possibly imagine. And people say, why do you work so much? You know, why do you do all these things? And it's just, I grab life. I'm just so grateful to have life. Mm. And I don't fear death. I mean, death is inevitable. It's the one thing we never talk about. It's why I think Bereaved's an interesting movie. It's a given. It will happen at some point. We don't know necessarily when or how. And you know, I really value life. And I realize that you only take 2 things with you when you die, which is really profound. The love you've shared and the difference you've made. You don't take anything else. That's it. And those are 2 huge things. So if you're not kind of enjoying sharing love with somebody, and if you're not finding some way to help other people and to make a difference in life, you know, realize that the other stuff you don't take with you.
And somehow I'm going to have to segue to Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger.
Yes. So Sinbad, I did. I must have done just after James Bond, or pretty soon after. That was all my own hair. That was my natural long hair. It was ridiculous. It almost came down to my knees. And Ray Harryhausen, it was all green screen, and yes, there was a stick with a thing on it. Occasionally he might show us a picture of what the monster might look like, but the very famous sequence of me playing chess with the monkey or whatever it was, the orangutan or whatever what was it?
I think it was supposed to be a baboon.
A baboon. Okay,
but
I got all mixed up.
I wouldn't trust me.
Yeah,
I know David
it was
Attenborough.
a baboon who was actually a prince, right? But
yeah.
It was absolutely amazing, and it wasn't until I saw the movie that I had any idea what we were really doing. I spent most of the time, you know, trying to get over the horrors of wearing untreated animal fur in large quantity and pretend sets of the, you know, ice caps when it was about 200 degrees in Malta with a bikini on underneath and it was melting.
I've seen a picture of you sporting that look.
Yes.
The big Ray Harryhausen book.
You're right. They just interviewed me again about Ray Harryhausen, and he was an amazing man. And you know, if I ever go to the opening of a big kind of special effects movie, when I'm walking down, the special effects animators, the people that work on those movies, come rushing up to me and they say, "What was it like to work with Ray Harryhausen?" Because he was the god for them of animation, and even still, they will still talk about what he did was extraordinary, especially in those times.
Was he as good with actors as he was with claymation?
No, he didn't actually have anything to do with us, I don't think. I mean, he just created it.
Yes. Well, I mean, the great thing about people he was working with was the
actually,
the
thing I remember most about Ray Harryhausen was that he lived in Spain and refused to speak Spanish. His Spanish was Chateau El Gato. He would just put an O on the end of anything English and expect the Spanish to understand it. And if they didn't, that was their problem.
Well, I'm so glad you brought up a favourite film of yours, because I think one of the things is that we all think that we have guilty pleasures of yours that no one else really knows about. And mine, or certainly one of my early encounters with you, Jane, was Frankenstein, the True Story.
Yes.
There you go. Two of us. Where you played Agatha and Prima.
Agatha and Prima, yes. Well,
you were the lady monster,
a lady monster, yes. I had my head removed and refashioned onto a new body. And that was not me naked in the tube, no. I actually that was the first time I had to actually look at naked women and say, that one looks most like me.
How lovely to pick out your own body.
That was weird. But that was a fantastic film, and Michael Sarrazin and Leonard Whiting, actually. And, of course, James Mason, who kept reading the Times out loud every morning while I was trying to learn my lines. That was difficult. But, yes, the head rolling and the whole thing. And I tried to get the accent right, to be a West Country bumpkin with my scene with Sir Ralph Richardson. And, of course, he was refusing to do any accent other than his own. So it's a ridiculous scene. I go, "Tonight, grandfather, when you have the best of your ever had." And he says, "Oh, yes, dear God." Anyway, it was fun. That was fun.
Are there any questions? Up, I think, here?
Yes?
Oh, we're missing you now.
There's a lady over here.
Okay,
Yes.
and then
Yes.
we'll come to you, lady over there.
Okay.
Hi, Jane. How did Dr. Quinn come about, and were you expecting it to be as successful as it was for so many years?
Great question. So I refused to ever do a series. I was not going to do a series. I'd been at the beginning of one called Battlestar Galactica, and I saw how everyone behaved, and I went, I don't want anything to do with this. So I'd never done a series, and I was married to one of the top accountants in America in the show business, and everything went horribly wrong, and he lost all our money and then some, and I was massively in debt when I had no idea, and my marriage ended, and it was a catastrophe, and I was basically homeless, penniless and everything. And so I called up my agent and said, I need to work yesterday. And he said, what do you mean? I said, trust me, I'll do anything. So he called to the network and said, Jane will do anything. And and they said, well, we have this little movie of the week called Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, but it starts production tomorrow. She has to say yes, well, the day after tomorrow. She has to say yes by tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. She has to sign for 5 years, but we pretty much guarantee it's not going to be a series because it's a woman in the lead. That doesn't work. Medical show definitely doesn't work. Western definitely doesn't work. Family values, forget about it, etc., etc. Period piece. And so basically, rather like in The Producers, they do Springtime for Hitler as a show that will definitely fail. That's what they were doing. They were trying to get rid of some people that they had under contract. And I was going to, make this movie, and then it did. No, it didn't make it as a series, sorry. So those people, their deals would be over. Who knew that the public loved it? They tried to kill it right from the beginning, and it was in the top 10 the first 2 nights it was on. It was on opposite a major football game and beat that. That's unheard of. And then it was on a Saturday night, which was considered the death slot. And I'm so proud of it. It's such an amazing series, so well written, and it's timeless. And the most amazing thing is last week alone, they decided to relaunch it in the United Kingdom. So it's now on CBS Action, which is a new channel, and it's on all the time. It's on in France all the time. It's in 98 countries, still running. And, of course, we did a parody. That was my idea, doing the parody with Breaking Bad.
Funny or Die.
Funny or
on
Die.
YouTube.
If you haven't seen it, it's very funny.
Yes.
Yeah, so we actually did all get back together again and do it. But I still have all the clothes, all the costumes. I have everything. If they want me to be Dr. Quinn tomorrow, I'm ready. And the hot dude, he's still around. He's my friend. He cut his hair off, though.
Yes, he had to wear a wig for Funny or Die, didn't he?
Oh, my God. We purposely bad one. Really, really bad one, because that's what made it funny.
I mean, I suppose it doesn't seem out of place in the networks now, but then the idea of a woman leading a series was groundbreaking.
It was very much groundbreaking, and it was very interesting because straight after that, they went, oh, this works. So then they put Roma Downey on, Touched by an Angel. They then did a show called Seventh Heaven, which was about a family values, and then suddenly all these doctor shows everywhere. So now everything seems to be procedural drama, like Law and Order and CSI and stuff like that. Everything has phases. But they say that people are now wanting those family values again. I think people really love Dr. Quinn, and new generations seeing it for the first time. They don't know it isn't being made right now.
I think in a way people like on a Saturday night to have something that all the family can gather and watch.
Right, and it was very intelligent, actually. I mean, the issues it dealt with are issues that are current right now.
Now, we did promise up there, lady there.
Welcome to Edinburgh, Jane.
Thank you.
You brought the sunshine today.
Yes, at last, just as I leave.
On a more personal note, after all your near-death experiences and the very busy lifestyle you've obviously led for a number of years, all your life actually, how do you keep so
Well, thank you for saying that, because I'm not feeling very fit or young or stunning at the moment, because I just gave myself a bit of a holiday and was enticed to eat, drink, and be merry. You know, I ate everything. See more, eat more. It was like, and it's a bit embarrassing because in America right now I'm on the cover of a magazine in a bikini, so I have to hide myself when I get through customs. No, but I do exercise. I try to, and not as much as I should. And I tend to actually really like Mediterranean diet. I eat fish and chicken and fresh vegetables, and I grow most of my own produce in America. And it's enviable. I know it's not nice to say to people here in Scotland that all year round you can grow blueberries, blackberries, bananas, oranges, avocados, peaches.
But Jane, have you tried haggis here?
You know, that is one of those things that I just don't care to try. You know, strange things put into strange bits of things put into a strange thing.
Yeah.
And
I know, we don't necessarily sell it the best we could. I heard it at breakfast being advertised by the waiter as,
yes.
Well, we get a sheep's stomach. And you think, oh,
no, they lose me right there. Right there.
Yeah, if they said spicy sausage, you'd give it a go.
Do you know something? I don't even do that. No, I tend to stick to smoked salmon. Best smoked salmon, langoustine, lobster, oysters. I mean, Scotland has everything I love, except for haggis. And blood pudding. You can put that away as well, whatever that is. Black pudding. Right.
Do you feel that, you know, the pressures have grown on women to stay looking good in a particular sort of, and a particular, by which I mean, I suppose, Botox surgery and all the rest of it. Is that something that we're getting more obsessed with in the film industry?
Oh, very much so. And I am the last of a dying species, which is why I was able to do bereave and look my age and look older and look very distressed, because every one of my muscles is unbotoxed. And, you know, there are wrinkles galore. I personally feel that as an actress that I'm a blank canvas. I come as a canvas. So I don't believe in, like the younger generation covering themselves in tattoos and the rest of it. I want to be able to turn myself into that character. So I try to be as fit or as lean as I need to be for whatever it is, or to look as good if I'm trying to play somebody that's very seductive and looks very good for her age. And there are lots of tricks in the trade without having to do anything permanent. But I'm an actress. I want to be able to move my muscles, and I think a lot of really terrific actresses I think have had a hard time going from leading lady to the kind of roles that I've been doing recently, because some of the bits of their faces aren't moving.
You wonder if studios make the suggestion first, though, that you look a bit tired. Not you, Jane, but
well, no, they just turn you down. I mean,
Really?
I'm 64 years old. They are not going to hire me to play 30, but I can get away with playing 50, or occasionally a little bit younger than that. And it all depends on the light. I mean, if you have this nasty top light that we have right now, you can be 20 and you're going to have major wrinkles and things. But if they blast you with the light and they, put you into what I call an igloo, like light everywhere from below and the sides, it's amazing how young you can look. So I always tell people think, oh, I'm going to look much better if I wear black because I'll be thin. Black doesn't reflect light. There's a reason why in fashion over the years, women wore those white ruffles, Chanel had the white collar. I mean, there is a reason to wear white near your face. It reflects light. It's a good idea.
It's a lighting trick for you.
Lighting trick, white scarf. White scarf.
Yes. Slightly regretting this top now.
I'm wearing the logo. And I would like to say this is a McQueen. I'm wearing skirts.
Yes.
Yes. I thought it had a thistly look to it. That's why I picked it out.
And it's lovely.
Thank you.
Gentleman over here.
Hi.
Sorry, I didn't mean that at all.
Lady.
Yeah, well, I am 20.
Okay.
Since I was going to go and see the Malcolm Dowell event, sadly he didn't come. Must ask, what was he like to work with on that, and indeed whatever else he's done?
Malcolm is wonderfully eccentric and has become one of my closest friends. He's a phenomenal guy, and he's really, really sad that he couldn't be here. He was devastated. He's just a fantastic actor to work with. He's so giving. He loves to act. He's working all the time. And we get along particularly well together. We play very well opposite each other. So we actually have another movie that we are putting together right now that we will star in together. Quite different. It's a psychological thriller, and really, really good. But he's really good at playing very kind of weird people.
Is he a cheery person first thing in the morning?
Oh, he's very cheery. Yes, he's very cheery. He's very sober and proud of it and open about it. And he drinks cups of tea and he's very cheery. He's a fantastic father. He's got incredibly talented older children and his younger children who are amazing. He's got little kids, little tiny ones, like 4 and 5 years old, and he's, 70 something?
Yeah.
No, he's unbelievable. I mean, it's hard to keep up with him. I mean, someone was asking me, how do you keep young? I have 4.5 grandchildren and 6 children. So, when you're taking care of grandchildren, you have to be,
You've puzzled me with
fit, right? It
4.5 grandchildren.
Yes, there's one in the oven.
Right.
There's one in the oven, actually a little girl, but her older sister, who's 2, refers to this particular growing thing on her mother's tummy as pizza, because it's in the oven. So I can be sure that child will be known as pizza.
And talking of families, aren't you going to do Who Do You Think We Are?
Yes, I did Who Do You Think We Are, and they've just announced it. It'll be coming out, I think, in August or September, and that was a life-changing experience for me. Unbelievable. I haven't seen the finished one, but they told me it's one of the best ones they've ever done, and I thought I knew everything about my family, and I've had a very colourful family. My mother was in the Dutch East Indies and incarcerated for 3.5 years in a Japanese concentration camp. I thought they'd pick that story, but they didn't. And on my father's side, my grandfather escaped from the pogroms in Poland, on the border of Poland and Russia. And I had no idea of the story that they were going to come up with. And it's it was incredibly moving, because they don't tell you where you're going or what you're going to see. And you suddenly get up in the morning and they put you in the car and off you go, and the next thing you know, you're at a cemetery, and then suddenly there's somebody there, and somehow or other you're connected, and then there are documents that verify everything, and it's just a huge emotional roller coaster. I highly recommend seeing that.
I know it's a big reveal, so we can't say too much about where the journey goes, but
No.
it does remind me that your dad was a doctor, and of course,
Yes,
having played Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, was there any sort of useful memory from that?
Very, very much so. First of all, before lasers, when you did surgery, you had to press really hard. And I used to watch surgery from the time I was 10. My father didn't want my sisters and I, to be afraid of blood, so we were invited into hospitals, and I watched surgery from 10. It's crazy. I've watched 3 open heart surgeries. I've watched C-sections. I've watched all kinds of things. But so I grew up working in hospitals as an auxiliary nurse every three weekends out of 4. I grew up with science and medicine. And so when I did Dr. Quinn, my father's favorite thing was the Wellcome Institute, which is the museum of the history of medicine. So it was just a perfect fit. It was just one of those perfect things that happened. And my father used to watch Dr. Kildare with us, and Emergency Ward 10, just before probably your time. And he'd always spoil it for us by saying, okay, this is what the patient has, this is what they're going to do. And so the plot was gone in 5 minutes, but then he'd spend the rest of it going, wrong. So when I did Dr. Quinn, unfortunately he'd already passed away, he'd just recently passed away. I always told people it was like a little haunting from my father. My father did not believe in God, but I told him in case he was wrong, would he give me a little haunting? Well, I always figured that Dr. Quinn was the little haunting, and I'd go on the set and I'd go, okay, Dad, are you sure about that? Because why do I randomly get this role, when this was our connection? And so I got someone in from the Smithsonian Institute to verify every script to make sure that everything was accurate. And the only thing that was inaccurate was my success rate, because, as you can imagine, Dr. Quinn basically had cocaine, morphine, whiskey, and a leather strap. There was no antibiotics and no antiseptics.
Yes, the morphine brings us back to why you play in Funny or Die.
In Funny or Die, yes. I just thought, if Dr. Quinn only had that, by the time we'd come back to Dr. Quinn now, she inadvertently would have turned the entire townsfolk into raging addicts and alcoholics. and the cast and the Funny or Die people thought it was really funny, so we did. But there are a couple of people who were actually believed that we were bringing back Dr. Quinn. And I know. Well, it was as close as we could get. I mean, I called everyone up the day before.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't, they gave them no notice. I said, hey, do you want to come back to the ranch and, we'll do this thing? And they all came back, and it was so much fun. And I threw a little party for them afterwards at my house. And, the fans are incredible globally for Dr. Quinn. Still, they come from all over the world, and we're doing a reunion in the park, and we're all going to be there next February.
There
So if
is
you want to-
room, isn't there, for us to return to Dr.
There would be,
Quinn?
but the head of CBS does not want to see or hear of Dr. Quinn. And
For
they
why?
own it.
There you go.
I suppose we could make Joe very happy and call it Dr. Sully, Medicine Man. But no.
Sorry.
No, Beth Sullivan wrote it, but she
She's gone down to Los Angeles now.
yes, she's around, and yes, and I speak to Beth frequently. But we've all tried. CBS owns it, so what can I tell you? That's it.
Very sad.
Maybe if they make a lot of money on CBS action in England and Scotland,
Yes.
they'll have to rethink it.
Yes, if we boost the ratings.
Yeah, boost the ratings. Yeah.
Now, are there any questions? Oh, just this gentleman in the front row.
Welcome, Scotland. It's a pleasure to see you.
Thank you.
I wonder, of all the varied roles that you've had, what's the one that you look back with most fondness?
It's really hard. Obviously, Somewhere in Time would be up there, and Dr. Quinn, because I did it for 7 years. But one of the most moving experiences of my life would have been War and Remembrance. I did that miniseries, 32 hours of War and Remembrance. I filmed personally in 9 different countries, and I was there in Birkenau, in Auschwitz, reliving what happened in that tragedy, surrounded by actual survivors. So, and I had family members who went through that part of the war too. So that was very impactful for me. East of Eden, I think, was an extraordinary role, and a great classic.
And it
If
did
you
more
never
than,
saw it-
unlike the film, East of Eden, you actually
Yes.
go through the whole...
Did the whole book.
Yeah.
Yes. Actually, it was interesting because I had tested for Raiders of the Lost Ark for Steven Spielberg, and believe it or not, and the way he would test you is he'd have you come in and cook a rum baba. And I'd like, what's this got to do with being an actress? But actually, that's how he found out who you were and whether you had the qualities he was looking for. And anyway, then when he found out that I was going to do East of Eden, he realized I'd never seen the original film, he actually screened it at his house for me. Yeah. It was
How
almost
amazing.
a date. Not a date, no. But he became a very good friend, and I'm really proud of what he's done in terms of things like Schindler's List. He's an extraordinary filmmaker and an amazing man. So, yes, he was the one that showed me that they hadn't actually done the whole story. So it was very cool to do the whole story.
Are there any directors that you've had a particularly useful note from?
Well, when I did Amadeus on Broadway, I was cast by Sir Peter Hall, and I'd done theatre, done rep, but I'd never really studied, the American method or Stanislavski or any of that kind of thing. And I auditioned for him, and he hired me on the spot, which was unheard of. And then he said, "Do you want to know why I hired you?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Well," "you're a very dangerous actress." And I said, "What does that mean?" And he said, "You make choices that no one else would, but you do them with such, honesty, and you pull it off." Mm. So he said, and then his other quote was, he said, "You're a character actress in spite of yourself." So I've always thought about that, and he told me not to take acting lessons. He said, whatever you're doing and wherever you come up with these choices, just let it happen. So I'm actually going to go back into the theatre, which I haven't done since Amadeus, and I'm going to do Noel Coward's The Vortex. And I'm going to, it's going to be mounted in England next year, but it will be played in the Far East, in Singapore and Kuala Lumpur and places like that. And if I still feel like doing it, I might bring it back.
Are you Tormented Mummy? in that.
Tormented Mummy. It's an
Something to look
amazing,
forward to.
amazing play, one that isn't often done.
Yeah.
But yes, I think it's a perfect role, great role, and I'm terrified. And I'm at that stage in my life where I don't want to just keep doing what I know how to do. I want to stretch myself in, you know, in every possible way. So that's why I did Bereave. That's why, you know, I take some of the roles that I take on.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, one of the things that I think bowled people for six, but in a very enjoyable way, was at the time of Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, or shortly afterwards, you did Wedding Crashers.
Yes.
And gave and who knew you were such an accomplished comedienne?
Anyone who knew me.
Exactly.
No, I'd done comedy in rep, but, you know, when you get pigeonholed, no one, you know, if you're a classic straight actress and in the beginning an ingenue, then a leading lady, then, you know, then a victim, then the evil. I did lots of evil as well. They keep, you know.
Do good, bad.
Yeah, good, bad, victim, whatever. They go, oh, she can do this. Oh, she can do that. Yeah. So I auditioned for this, and I straight after they'd stopped doing Dr. Quinn, and I thought, oh my gosh, this thing is out there, but hysterically funny, and the Dr. Quinn fans will go nuts when they see this. You know, this is R-rated. They're not going to be happy about this. There's nothing family about this. And so I closed it up. And then I thought, well, we're not doing Dr. Quinn anymore. And this is really funny. So I read it again, and I just kept going, oh, this is just too funny. So I had to audition for it. And I wasn't good at auditioning because I never really had auditioned. You know, I kept being hired. It was based on previous work that I would get the role. And I auditioned with a casting director who was a sort of nice middle-aged lady with a little tiny camera, and I'm used to big cameras and lots of crew, and you've already got the part. So I'm there, and I'm having to do this embarrassing scene, you know,
Is
with
it the big scene that you had
the
to do
big scene
as
with
your
Owen
audition?
Wilson, yes. And they're pointing a camera at me, and I decided so I could show them I wasn't afraid of taking my clothes off at this stage. Who knew I was going to start doing that at my age? I wore like a lacy blouse with a bra on underneath, and anyway, long story short, the director called me that night and said, could I come back and could I up the sexuality of the scene? And I said, well, probably if I wasn't playing opposite another middle-aged woman. And I said, no, I didn't really say that. Really, I didn't. And so I came back, and they gave me the most gorgeous guy on the planet, this guy who now is quite a well-known star, called Jeffrey Stoltz, who at that time was coming in just to do the scene with me, and put us in a room together to do this scene, and I got terribly embarrassed. I said, this is really weird, this is strange. Anyway, we did the thing, and I got the part. And then, of course, I had to do it with Owen Wilson. And then you've got Vince Vaughn saying, you know, Owen, are you ready to see more of Seymour? Like, really, Vince, you really think that's an original statement? But it was very funny, and Owen was absolutely terrified. So,
did you calm him? Don't worry, Owen,
well,
I've done these sort of things.
I tried. Isla Fisher, she got in on the act, and she was supposed to be naked, as was, you know, everybody else, but she got out of it. So I was the only idiot that was supposed to had to do it. But, you know, one does cover oneself up, so don't worry about it. There was nothing actually ever to be seen. But it was still very embarrassing. So Owen had to do this thing, and he had to basically touch me and put his hands there. And it was embarrassing. It was a closed set, and he did it, and he went like that. And then the director said, cut, and he came out, Owen, okay, can you just relax your hands a bit more? And Owen looked at me, and I said, look, Owen, this whole thing would not be right for Jane Seymour, but currently I'm kitty cat, so you're fine. Okay. So then he went, and then the director came out and said, no, can you just, you know, move your hands slightly? Looked at me, I said, Owen, I'm kitty cat right now, okay? Jane later for a drink in the bar. Okay, so he came, he did it, and he went, but he was the one that came up with the last line. He said, it wasn't scripted. He said, when you go out, he said, well, just say pervert. And I think it made the scene. So, and it was a very funny scene.
It was fantastic. Wasn't she fantastic in Wedding Crashers?
Well, anyway, thank you. It's fun to do comedy. I now do so much comedy. But, you know, how often can you play cougars?
Yeah.
I don't know. I've been playing every form of cougar known to man. And
yeah, I mean...
Yeah. That's why Bereave was good. What?
Keep going.
Keep going. Oh, well, I'll quote you then. No, you know what? It's...
name's Owen.
Okay. You know what? I think women of a certain age are funny and sexy. You know, it's not done yet, is it?
Gosh, I hope
I
not.
don't think so, no.
Can we have a question from the audience? Gentlemen. Oh, you again. You're on a roll now.
I was scared of mentioning Wedding Crashers, namely in case I got it wrong, and I was totally wrong, but you say it now made me feel comfortable I could ask this question. Obviously that film had Christopher Walken in. I think
Yes.
I'm a big, I do love the man, and obviously he was in Roger Moore's last Bond film. Must ask, what's he like?
Really strange. Christopher Walken is the way you see him. That's how he is. And his delivery when he talks is just like that. You know, it's like you do a scene with him, you have no idea how to respond to it. You know, it's like, you know, where did he go? Did he go there? That would be the line. And he'd go, where? Did he go? Well, it there? Like, now what are you going to do? But, you know, it all comes across brilliantly on screen, and it's very clever and different. It's very interesting, actually. He has trouble learning lines. So he has in his contract that when he gets offered the script, that they're not allowed to change a single word of the script, of his lines. Because he pre-learns them for, you know, months beforehand. And if you ever make movies, you know that lines are changed on the spot, especially in comedy. They're changed all the time. Try this, try this, try this. I mean, that's the art of really good comedic playing, is that you have the script, but then you get to play and do all kinds of stuff. So that was very interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
So he's the rock round which everybody else has to move.
No, I think he's in his own universe. We are just little mini planets, you know.
I've only met him once, and he also has fascinating hair. And
Yes,
he's very
and
proud of his
shoes,
hair.
very fascinating shoes. And the other thing I found that was interesting about him is if the movie is 4 weeks or less, he only takes one carry-on bag. That's his entire wardrobe, personal wardrobe.
Wow, that's capsule planning.
That's capsule planning.
I'm quite impressed. I must ask his advice. I hear he does a very good chicken as well. He'll
Does he?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't
a
know
roast
that.
chicken that he sticks a beer can up its bottom. Possibly says more about the kind of conversations I have with Christopher Walken. Is there anybody? Yes, gentleman here.
This may be a little off topic, but some years ago I remember seeing a lot of paintings you did, which were really very nice.
Thank you very much. Yes.
But I didn't know if you did that anymore. You sound so busy, I wondered if you had time.
Oh, no, I do. I paint as often as I can. In fact, I was on the Queen Mary 2 just now, and they had the major art gallery. We had 4 major art shows there, and I do about 12 art shows a year in America. And I paint all the time. I also, I do Impressionism, and I do also this open heart theme piece. That it all came from paintings and sculptures that have now become a jewelry line. It's very big in America. It's here at H. Samuel's, and in Canada at People's. But I paint and design all the time. I also design furniture, top of bed, all kinds of different things. And it's always been a part of my life. People said, well, why, if you're an actress, are you now painting or designing? Well, I painted and designed long before I was an actress. So really the question is, why am I an actress? But I paint because I love it. It's a very zen experience for me. When I start painting or drawing, I literally get taken to another place. So for me, it's almost a transcendental experience, and it's very healing. And I started painting 24 years ago when everything went horrible, and I did Dr. Quinn. This was my way of calming myself. It's very therapeutic art, and I particularly love teaching it. I love it, especially people that don't know anything about painting and are convinced they can't paint. And I get them actually being able to really express themselves with colour and form. It's fun.
Is painting a little like films? Do you know what ones are going to be successful?
No idea.
Yeah.
No, in fact, I have a really good story on that one, because I will go to the gallery just before it opens, and all the art's been sent out by my art dealer and framed, and I don't know what they necessarily have, so I always make sure I know what's where. And one time I came in and there was this one of a little tiny giraffe, and it was just so embarrassing. It was embarrassing. It was the worst painting ever. And it had nothing to do with my actual painting and why I even drew this giraffe or how it ever ended up framed. And I took my art dealer and I said, why is that giraffe? You've got to get it off, get rid of it now, get it out over here. Because that's embarrassing. I didn't mean that ever to be shown. And she said, no, it's very cute. I said, cute, I just love it. And then everyone comes in, and about half an hour later she comes up to me and said, Jane, may I ask you something? I have a collector here who is very interested in your little petite giraffe. And was wondering, since we've sold this one, whether you would be willing to revisit the subject matter. So that's it. I was telling my giraffe story. I had no idea. You know, the painting that I think's great, you know, they probably avoid, but everyone has different tastes.
And does the same kind of apply to film work that you've done, that you think, oh, they'll love this, and I'm not sure about this? I mean, Somewhere in Time seems to be a little like that, because it got a very lacklustre release from the studio.
All my most successful films and television shows have had the worst reviews. So if you see a really bad review for me, you can guarantee that the public will love it. I mean, they actually did a retraction on Dr. Quinn. Matt Roach, who was the TV critic, actually the next year wrote an entire page saying how wrong he was.
Oh, how satisfying.
Said, very satisfying. And I think the same kind of thing happened with Somewhere in Time. You know, no one realized, you know, it was and you know, some people might not understand Bereave, you know, who knows. But the audiences love it, and the audience still love Dr. Quinn, and they still love Somewhere in Time. And I know it's really interesting. I learned a long time ago that it was actually Dickie Attenborough gave me this advice. He said, the day you believe in your own publicity, you're dead. So if you believe that when they write and say you're the best actress on the planet and this is the best movie ever known, you know, then you also have to believe that you're the worst actress on the planet, and you know, and this is material that should never be seen or shown to anyone. So, you know, you have to do the best you can, and there is work that I'm more proud of than others, but as an actress, you know, you find the material, and then you're part of a team. You have fellow actors, you know, they cast them, you don't necessarily, unless you're producing, cast them. You have what happens that day, you know, they have sets, they have weather, they have, you know, timing, they have issues, you know, you don't always have the time to do things the way you were hoping to. There's so many things between the role that you read and the finished product that you see in a cinema, including all the testing that's done on it, and whether or not they have money for post-production, or whether they can, you know, distributors decide they want to change the ending or do whatever, or the music, which makes a huge difference. I mean, or the color. It's such an amazing process making film. Making art, it's me. It's 100% me. I think about it, I do it, you know, no one asked me to. You know, that's an absolute 100% piece of me with nobody involved.
I mean, starting out, Britain didn't really know what to do with Jane Seymour. Do you think now, if you'd been starting now, do you think they would have been any the wiser about what sort of roles suited you, you know, how to shape your career? Would you have gone to America again?
Probably. You know, I had the most amazing experience in England, and I still do. I mean, I did Austenland, which is a wonderful comedy. If you haven't seen that, that's a fantastic feature film with Kerry Russell, and I played this crazy, awful English woman that runs a place where people can experience the full Austen experience. It's really crass and funny. The people who made Napoleon Dynamite made it, so if you are into that. But I love doing England. I love working in England. I mean, that's one of my favourite things to do. And I would love working in Scotland, given half a chance. It hasn't happened yet.
How can we tempt you to Scotland?
Very easy.
Jane?
Just ask me and I'll show up.
Really?
Yes.
That's easy?
It's that easy. It's that easy. I was just in a Cannes Film Festival promoting the dance movie I did, High Strung, and a young filmmaker came up to me and has asked me to come and do a film next year in French and English. He heard me speaking French on the red carpet and decided I should play in both languages. So you just never know. I'm because I do other things in life and because I can afford to, it's not about money for me. It's about making really good material, about telling stories that wouldn't be told otherwise. Bereave would not have been told otherwise. And there's a lot of really great independent movies, some of which I've been watching here. You know, for the first time I actually managed to get to watch a movie at a film festival. That never happens. And the way that the business is now, there are so many places to watch movies. It's not just in a cinema. In fact, more people, and my kids' generation, are watching their movies either on a cell phone or a computer.
Yeah. Do we approve of that?
I approve of anything that communicates something that is either entertaining or provocative and enlightens or enhances the experience of somebody that's watching it. So, it would be like saying, is there any point in radio anymore? I think there's a lot of point in radio. I'll still do radio. You have to know what your audience is. Obviously, there's an audience for film, because there are certain films where you really want to be with other people weeping or crying or laughing or go, being frightened. And then there are other things where, you can watch them on your home video but it's really interesting. I'm going back actually tomorrow to America, and I'm doing something I've never done before, which is now the big thing. They're making 5-minute long series, but each installment's 5 minutes, and they put it straight up on the internet.
So like a serial?
A series, yes, and for me it's fantastic. It's actually very well written. It's all about superheroes, which of course I don't know enough about. But according to my manager, who does know a lot about superheroes, and he read it, he went, "Oh no, this is really good. You should do this." And it'll get apparently millions and millions of people will watch that, as opposed to something that I do in a more traditional way. And it's a fun role, and it's good material, and why not? If there are people with a very short attention span that are interested in superheroes and they want to watch it on their phone while they're supposed to be doing their homework or working for me.
We're I think getting a bit short on time, but we'll take a question from this lady over here. Oh, sorry. There are two of you.
Yes.
I did,
Above or below?
Sorry, poor pointing there. I'll take the lady in the glasses first, and then the next.
They're both in glasses.
Oh.
Yes. Okay. You need glasses.
I know. I'm so sorry. I can only blame my own fuzzy thinking here. Okay, lighter top. How's that?
Okay.
Just the lady above. Yes, you first.
Hello, Jane. I just wanted to ask, do you have a preferred theme for your work? You've done a lot of work that involves historical stories and period dramas or historically significant characters, and your more recent work seems to be based around a lot of current themes and current ideas. Do you have a preferred theme?
A pattern?
Preferred theme? No, I just look for good material. I did do an enormous amount of period pieces, and I think part of that is that after all that ballet, I can actually stand up straight and wear a corset and do all those, minuets and whatever. I played Marie Antoinette in the French Revolution. You've got to see that. That was not shown here, I don't think, but it's well worth it, the kind of period things. But no, I like doing everything, contemporary, futuristic.
Scottish?
Scottish.
Yes.
Scots. Yes.
You're already halfway there. If only Barney, the legend of Barney Thompson, had known you were available.
It's not too late.
Yeah?
I could do a pretty good brogue if I had some time. I've done Irish. I did Irish very well. From Dorky, no less.
Really?
And I actually socially met Edge the other day from U2. And I was chatting to him, and I said, I've had to play Irish once. I said, it's a very specific accent from a place called Dorky. He said, Dorky? So that's where I grew up. So we bantered in Dorky.
Well, maybe you can come along to Scotland, bed in for, a few weeks. We'll make sure it's the vegetarian haggis.
No. I will taste haggis, okay? I will do that before I leave.
I'm sorry, I wouldn't force it on you. No, the other lady who...
Yes.
It's just that I wanted to know, what was it like to act with John Gielgud in Foreign Remembrance?
Oh, thank you for asking. What a wonderful man. Obviously a legend, obviously an extraordinary, and obviously later in his years. And extraordinary things happened while we were filming. We were together for 9 months on and off in 9 countries. And he would always dress for dinner, no matter what the scene of the day was. And, he did the dreadful scene in the showers where he was murdered, in the concentration camp. And he still came back and, and he dressed for dinner. And I said to him one day, I said, why do you work so much? He was in his late 80s at that time. And he said, dear girl, he said, I have never missed a performance, and I have never missed a day on the set. He said, so long as I have a call sheet and my name is on it, I know I shall be alive. So I thought that was
fantastic
interesting.
Philosophy.
That was his insurance policy, to make sure he was alive the next day. If he was on a call sheet, he'd be there.
Can I ask about the diversity of things that you do? I mean, you're a producer, you're as well as an actor, you paint. I mean, all these different things that you do, is it a restlessness, or is it a sense that you don't want to trust one particular thing, like acting or?
No, if there's a role or a movie or a story that I want to tell, and I can help make it happen, then I produce. And if there's a kind of a philosophy or a way of dealing with and coping with stuff in life, I'll write books and put my paintings in it and do things like that. I do a lot of public speaking on a lot of different topics, and I really feel like I feel that painting, public speaking, philanthropy, writing, producing, being a parent, being an actress, being a dancer, being a human being, it's all part of the same person, really. I mean, I can't stop having ideas that are creative. I just don't. It just, I can't flip that switch. I mean, I can actually not have time to paint it, but I'll have the idea. But I suppose communicating is what I do. So whether it's communicating on behalf of organizations or people that are making a difference, and I can do that through my foundation, my Open Hearts Foundation, I don't see that as being a detraction from acting. And I think sitting by a telephone waiting for people to call me and ask me to do Coronation Street, which they haven't, by the way. I'd probably be awful in that.
No.
But I'd much rather be open to doing anything that comes to me, but at the same time being creative about putting things together. And,
I think
and
you
I
could
love being
sort out
creative.
Betty's hot pots down at Coronation Street, quite the thing. It'd probably be healthier eating.
I
Coronation
haven't
Street.
seen Corrie since Aina Sharples.
Really?
Yeah, so I am so wrong,
Few things have happened. I mean,
I'm sure.
you always seem to have such great stories about actors. Do you ever get nervous, or have you ever been nervous working with someone?
Well, I got very nervous when I worked with Ralph Richardson because I accidentally sat in his chair. And I didn't know you weren't supposed to sit in other people's chairs. And instead of him coming up and saying, "Excuse me, you're sitting in my chair," or someone else coming up and saying, "Excuse me, you're sitting in his chair," he just walked around the chair 5 times. And I kept thinking, why is he? And he was an old guy, right? And he's walking around my chair. I thought, that's very interesting. And then all of a sudden I went, oh, and I ran, Actors that I've been nervous or frightened of. No, not really. I mean, I've had the most amazing actors that I've worked with, and when you're there and you're doing the scenes, you're sort of almost equal.
And I just think people are a bit like spiders. They're usually more scared of you than you are of them. Hopefully.
Well, I always try and make sure that nobody's scared. And I did a series, and I know how hard it is for an actor to come in on a series when everyone knows everyone, and they're just kind of, it's like, oh gosh, another day at the office, and then somebody new comes in and they're very nervous. And now I am guest starring on other people's series, and I come in and they, put you in a little tiny trailer and you have your lines, and they don't want to see you until it's time for the scene, and you don't have time to rehearse it. So I've now, been both sides of this. So I now take it in my own hands. I'll go out and, watch what everyone else is doing and, grab the leading lady and just say, hey, you want to run these? and I go, oh, yeah. And I just, I try to, I think because I also produce films, I see things from every side. I see what the production is dealing with. I see what, especially if people are in a series, what they're dealing with. And I know where I fit in, and I also know where I can be useful.
I think one of the great stories we were talking about just before we came on stage was we were talking about your associations with Johnny Cash.
Yes.
Which I meant to bring up. That's very bad of me. Meant to bring up earlier when we were talking.
Dr. Quinn.
About,
yeah.
Yes. About,
well,
because he was on Dr. Quinn.
I know. It was amazing. We did Dr. Quinn, and they'd say, oh, we've got a guest star this week, Johnny Cash. I'm like, Johnny Cash is going to do Dr. Quinn. That's huge. But we had everyone. We had Travis Tritt. We had Willie Nelson twice. We had, you name them, they were on it. But I didn't really know Johnny Cash. I don't know how I didn't know about country music, but I was brought up in Wimbledon, and somehow I learnt more about opera and classical ballet than Western. Then, so Johnny Cash came on, and he'd had a really bad surgery that hadn't worked, and I think he was on some painkillers, which was not good for Johnny Cash, and he had a lot of trouble. And my then husband James Keach was directing him, and he got the most amazing performance out of him. And Johnny was so grateful, as was June, his wife, for the way that we were able to help him get through this, and also give an extraordinary performance, which he did, that he became friends with us. And he said, you know, we realized that someone's going to make a story of Johnny's life one day, of our life, and no one actually really knows the real story, and we're really afraid they're going to tell the wrong story, and we trust you, and we don't trust anyone else. What do you think? Would you make it? So James and I looked at one another, and we thought, well, yes, we need to know more about Johnny Cash. So they gave us all the books, all the material, all the information, access to everyone they'd ever worked with, their family. We stayed in their home in Hendersonville. We stayed with them in Jamaica. We became really, really close friends. And what happened is we ended up making Walk the Line, which was a great movie. We worked on it for 11 years, and our promise to John and June was that we hoped to do this before they passed away. And when we had done our research, we came back to Johnny and we said, Johnny, this is not a linear story about your life. We feel it's more about redemption. And Johnny got so excited, he said, that's what I want. He said, you know, then I will give you the gnarly truth. I'll tell you all the bad stuff, everything. But if from this, people that, you know, make some bad decisions and go through some tough times and do some horrible things, feel that they can find redemption. And of course, very hard to put the word God into a movie in America. They tried to pull that one out, and he was adamant that his faith was mentioned in the movie. But of course, Jim Mangold ended up directing it, not my husband James, but we were involved with it right to the end. And Johnny Cash is one of my twins is called Johnny, and that's his godson, and he's named Johnny Keach. Watch out for him, he's just moving to Nashville. He's become a rock and roller, and he's very good.
It strikes me that the Jane Seymour story is a bit of a country song in itself. We have the death, for a start, the ups, the downs.
The ups, the downs, yes, it is. It could be a country music song. I wrote a book a long time ago called Remarkable Changes, and I realized that life's challenges at the time seem insurmountable, but they actually are opportunities to move forward and to grow. And that I think a lot of people, when they're challenged, give up. And a lot of people said to me, why you? Why do you hit the bottom and then somehow you come up higher than you were before? How does that happen? And I think it's because I really practice what my mother preached to me, which is, I do live with an open heart. I do accept that things are painful and sometimes unbearable and sometimes insurmountable, but that there is always someone worse off than me. So that takes me out of my pity party. And by helping and being of service and being connected with other people, it brings, love and a quality of life and the ability to move forward into your life experience. And so I really believe that. So that's what I do. And my kids asked me before they went off to college, the little ones, well, now 19, they sat me down. They said, "Mom, what's the most important thing in life?" And I went, "Oh, that's interesting. I never see you for dinner, and now here you are at dinner." And this is a rather a pointed question, and clearly I have, to come up. And I thought about it, and I said, well, off the top of my head, I would say be authentic. I said, if you're authentic, if you're real, if you are the best you can be under the circumstances at that given time, then if you change your mind about something, or you change your belief about something, or you try to do something different, or something you do doesn't work, you can't be blamed. I mean, it's life. You just be real. And they keep saying, to me that they think that's pretty good advice. So.
I think that is pretty good advice. Yeah. And it's also, I'm afraid, the
Yeah.
perfect note to end our afternoon with Jane, the real thing. Please join me in thanking Jane Seymour.
Thank you.